Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Gospel Freedom Podcast. My name is Mitchell Parker, and I'm so glad to have your company for today's podcast, which is going to be on the Psalms. Now, there's so much that you can get into when it comes to the Psalms, but today I thought I'd just go over a couple of Psalms and explain to you exactly what the Psalms are, because there's quite a lot of them and they're all quite different, although some of them are quite similar. So that's what we're going to look at today. And before we get into that, as per normal, here's a preview of what's coming up. The shepherd watches and directs our paths, and when you make God the Lord of your life, goodness and mercy follows. And there's nowhere we can go. God is everywhere. You're in God's court. He is our rock. Nothing can shake him, and therefore nothing shall shake us. So the class is in session for the 7th edition of Christianity 101, which of course means this is Christianity 701. Now, for those of you who are slightly uninitiated, the Psalms are a book in the Bible, and the main element of the Psalms, and I don't think there are any Psalms that aren't this, they're all poems / songs. So these are all praise and worship towards God. Now, there are many different authors, human authors, who are writing and performing the Psalms. So that means that there's quite a number of different Psalms and Psalm types, and also each author has different emotions and different feelings, and so therefore that's another reason why there are different types of Psalms. So the New Living Study Bible has a helpful diagram which is an overview of the Psalms, and it's got different rectangles with the number of that particular psalm, and the size of it is based on how many verses are in there, and each of those psalms are grouped by the category. Although some psalms are a mix, they've given each one a binary category. So there's praise psalms, Zion psalms, messianic psalms, God is King psalms, royal psalms, imprecation psalms, lament psalms, wisdom psalms, trust psalms, and thanksgiving psalms. And of course, the biggest one of them all, Psalm 119, is classed as a wisdom psalm according to this. Now, the 4 major psalm categories are wisdom, praise, lament, and messianic. So they're the majority of the psalms. It would be quite interesting to hear how they came to the conclusions they did, because most psalms contain at least 2 or 3 of these categories as their themes. Now, I would like to read some psalms to you, so that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with Psalm 23 from the New King James Version, and this is categorized as a trust psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This is probably the most well-known psalm ever. It's almost as popular as John 3:16 or Genesis 1:1, although those two are verses and this is a complete chapter. I'm happy to say, yep, this is a trust psalm. Let's have a closer look at Psalm 23. So what does it mean when David says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"? Well, it's saying that we are like sheep, that God is the one directing our lives. And a shepherd looks after his sheep. The shepherd watches and directs our paths. And that is why when David says that he walks through the valley of the shadow of death, he doesn't fear, because God has made the path and God is with him. And when you make God the Lord of your life, goodness and mercy follows, and that we get to live with God forever. So it's not a temporal thing, it's eternal. Now, the next one I'm going to read, well, it's a little bit more personal. It's Psalm 139, and I actually couldn't find it on the diagram, and I'm not quite sure what category I'd give it. It goes through quite a few, so maybe I'd call this a personal psalm, but it's not just all about David the author. It also touches on things that are common to all of humanity. O Lord, you have searched me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged behind me and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning, and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you, for you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed. In your book they are all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. How precious also are your thoughts to me, O God! How great is the sum of them! If I should count them, they would be more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God! Depart from me, therefore, you bloodthirsty men. For they speak against you wickedly. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate them, O Lord, who hate you? And do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me, and know my anxieties. And see if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of the everlasting. Now, there was a lot in there in just 24 verses, quite a lot to unpack. I actually want to start at the end. You and I both know that there are people that like to paint God, especially Jesus, as a cutesy little character who just kind of, well, here's your little thing and here's your little thing here. I'm a magical man in the sky and I love everybody, and that means that I let them do exactly what they want, because that's love, guys. Love is doing whatever someone wants. No, that's not love. And these verses make it quite clear God has enemies, and we are to count them also as enemies. Now remember, Jesus also said to love our enemies, but that does not mean that we are to accept what our enemies do, and that's very important. So the point is that if we are to hate them and also love them, the point is perfect hatred. What that means is that we're meant to hate them in the same way God does, and that is not to hate the fact that they exist, or to be jealous of what they have, but it is to hate the actions, to hate the evil that they commit, and to love them in the sense that we're telling them what they're doing is wrong, and in turn not acting evil towards them, because we would just be continuing the evil rather than practicing the godly things, the righteousness that God commands us to do. And of course that leads on back to the beginning where it says that God knows us. He has searched us, He knows what we're doing. We don't even have to say it. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. We don't even have to say a word, but God knows our thoughts. He knows every single thing we do. And because He's not a cutesy, cuddly little magical man in the sky, God has punishments. And so that's exactly why we need Jesus, because He knows every single wrong thing that we've done. And there's nowhere we can go. God is everywhere. I hope you enjoyed that little riff from God is Everywhere, the song by Colin Buchanan. Alright, on to the next thing. The next psalm, Psalm 22, and it begins with the famous cry from Jesus. He is quoting this psalm when He's on the cross. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me and from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not answer, and in the night season, and I am not silent. But you are holy, enthroned in the praises of Israel. Our fathers trusted you. They trusted, and you delivered them. They cried to you, and were delivered. They trusted in you, and were not ashamed. But I am a worm, and no man, a reproach of men, and despised by the people. All those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip. They shake their heads, saying, He trusted in the Lord. Let Him rescue him. Let Him deliver him, since He delights in him. But you are He who took me out of the womb. You made me trust while on my mother's breasts. I was cast upon you from birth. From my mother's womb, you have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is no one to help. Many bulls have surrounded me, strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. They gape at me with their mouths, like a raging, roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted within me. My strength is dried up, like a potsherd, and my tongue clings to my jaws. You have brought me to the dust of the earth, for dogs have surrounded me. The congregation of the wicked has enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I can count my bones. They look and stare at me. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far from me. O my strength, hasten to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. Save me from the lion's mouth and from the horns of the wild oxen. You have answered me. I will declare your name to my brethren. In the midst of the assembly I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise Him. All you descendants of Jacob, glorify Him, and fear Him, all you offspring of Israel. For He has not despised, nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, nor has He hidden His face from him. But when he cried to Him, He heard. My praise shall be of you in the great assembly. I will pay my vows before those who fear Him. The poor shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek Him will praise the Lord. Let your heart live forever. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations shall worship before you. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and He rules over the nations. All the prosperous of the earth shall eat and worship. All those who go down to the dust shall bow before Him, even he who cannot keep himself alive. A posterity shall serve Him. It will be recounted of the Lord to the next generation. They will come and declare His righteousness to a people who will be born, that He has done this. Well, there is a meme about certain football players who say, it's a game of two halves, well played by the boys, you've got to get the win here, something like that. And that was an example of a psalm with two halves. The first half is a cry out. It seems like it's David, but those things also apply to Jesus. And in the second half, it's the rejoicing of God delivering his servant. And of course, his servant is David, and of course, Jesus. And if you remember back to a previous podcast, if you're listening in order, I did a reading of the suffering servant, and that was from Isaiah. And you could see the different things about Jesus there. And you can listen to the Psalms here, particularly this Psalm, and you would say, well, this is a messianic psalm because it's describing what will happen to Jesus. And so if you look at the Old Testament, you look at the Psalms, you look at Isaiah, look at lots of other books, and you can see Jesus there. And you have to say to yourself, hang on, why do people reject Jesus when the prophecy is so clear? Well, it's not for a lack of passages describing Jesus. It's because for a reason, as I've discussed before, that people don't want to think of their sins and the punishment, and they will read this passage where Jesus is being unjustly punished and will completely look over that and say, well, I'm glad that's not me. Well, you're going to suffer punishment one day in hell, and it's going to be far worse than this because it's eternal. And I'm going to end with a praise psalm. So I think we've covered all of the major categories in these 4 psalms, and this is Psalm 92. It is good to give thanks to the Lord, and to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your loving kindness and your faithfulness every night, on an instrument of 10 strings, on the lute and on the harp, with harmonious sound. For you, Lord, have made me glad through your work. I will triumph in the works of your hands. O Lord, how great are your works! Your thoughts are very deep. A senseless man does not know, nor does a fool understand this. When the wicked spring up like grass, and when the workers of iniquity flourish, it is that they may be destroyed forever. But you, Lord, are on high forevermore. For behold your enemies, O Lord. For behold, your enemies shall perish. All the workers of iniquity shall be scattered. But my horn you have exalted like a wild ox. I have been anointed with fresh oil. My eye has also seen my desire on my enemies. My ears hear my desire on the wicked who rise up against me. The righteous shall flower like a palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those who are planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall still bear fruit in old age. They shall be fresh and flourishing, to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. Well, a praise psalm is pretty straightforward. It's praising all the works of God. But what's important to focus on here is that if you're in the house of the Lord, it doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter where you've been, you're in God's court. He is our rock. Nothing can shake him, and therefore nothing shall shake us. So that was your little overview into the Psalms. If you want to hear a deep discussion of the Psalms, I would recommend the Psalm series that James Delingpole has done with a host of different guests where they go into a psalm and just discuss it and a whole host of other biblical issues. And I know that at least 2 of the Psalms that I read today were also spoken about in depth by James and his guest in that podcast, 23 and 139. Well, that has been the Gospel Freedom Podcast, Christianity 701, the Psalms, which means 2 to go. and those two will be Easter. So they are probably the two most important podcasts because it just about wraps everything else up that we've been talking about in at the end of this, 9 episodes. So I'll see you then. Well, you'll hear me then, but let's not get stuck in the details of a metaphor. Anyway, goodbye and God bless.